If you're curious about things, you're gonna learn more and dig more and figure out ways to make things better. So for me, it's like always trying to recreate things in terms of keeping it interesting. And there's really just never a dull moment because you can keep recreating things and staying positive. And that's just the mindset I try to keep.
This is where it all begins. So say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win. We come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, creators, and disruptors who are changing the way that business happens today. My name is Tyler Kelly. I'm here with my co-host Leigh-Ann Buchanan, and we're joining you tonight from Slam Agency St. Louis. Really excited because tonight we are joined by Tricia Zimmer Ferguson, the owner of Kaldi's Coffee.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. So,
welcome.
Yeah.
Well, Tricia, for those that don't know, and I'm just learning, Kaldi's Coffee is really kind of a St. Louis staple. You have a wholesale operation. From what I understand, you have over 600 wholesale customers across the U.S. We've been talking a little bit about the expansion around tea and new markets. But before we talk about the business too much, we want to talk about who you are. And so maybe just walk us through how you even got here. You know, how did you become the owner of this thriving coffee business?
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm not from St. Louis originally. So as I was just saying before, which is kind of funny because it's like, you know, when you get the high school question, where did you go to high school? And I'm like, not from here, but now I've lived here long enough. So it's home now for sure. And I'm from Missouri originally. So, I mean, growing up was always coming to this Cardinals games and being in St. Louis to go shopping because I'm from a small town. So, you know, it's always had a special place in my heart. And so I still feel like it's home. And of course, now where we have our business space, you know, it is our home. And I have a family now here. But I ended up going to school at the University of Missouri, Columbia. Mm-hmm. And I'm a third generation entrepreneurial family. My grandfather actually started one of the first all country music radio stations in a small town called Dexter, Missouri in the 1950s. Wow. Had 6 boys, one of them being my dad. And the brothers got into radio broadcasting. And then from there, had their own group of radio stations. And obviously over time, as that business model changes, focusing more on advertising and marketing. So we kind of joke now, being in the coffee business, that we're in the wake-up business. And but yeah, you know, going back to that, when I graduated from college, I married right after college, I married my high school sweetheart. And he's actually the one that kind of got us into the coffee industry. He met the original owners of Kaldi's on Demond. That store has been there since 1994. And he was going to open his own franchise business. He and my dad were working on a plan to do that. And we were going to carry Kaldi's Coffee. And so, you know, one conversation turned into another, and boom, all of a sudden we're partnering with them and opening more retail stores. I never, ever had worked a day in my life in retail. So my dad likes to joke, because it's a family business, that I got my Harvard education the first 5 years working 80 hours a week at figuring out the retail business. And let me tell you, I still don't have it figured out, and it changes all the time. But I've always had a passion for business. And so even when I was at Mizzou, you know, it was like I was at the business school, and I was always so interested. And I could have said, you know, it's not... I think I'm just more passionate. I do better working and collaborating with people. So whatever that led to, I knew one day I wanted to have my own business. And so, you know, I can't say it was always a dream of mine to be in the coffee or tea business, but that's where we landed. And luckily, what does coffee do? It brings people together. And so, you know, I think that's really where my passion for what I do every day keeps me going. So...
In your origin story, you talked about being a third generation entrepreneur. So it's in your DNA, it's in your blood. And, you know, there's a lot of research that talks about the important effect of having, you know, role models or people in your family that have started businesses, and how that kind of shifts your mindset and your capability to launch a business. So maybe talk to us a little bit about what it was like to grow up around family members that were running a business, and how that maybe shaped your appetite for entrepreneurship.
Yeah, we have values, and like my dad says, like these values, they should not change year to year, right? So once you kind of create your statement of values, it kind of should go into your family and all those things. And so I think from an early age, like we heard our mom and dad talking about that. And so even, I think the one thing now as I start raising my own children, I look back to how I was raised. And I think one of the key things is like we always saw, we have a core value is openness. And so, our parents kind of just laid it all out there. And they were like, hey, life's not perfect. My dad used to say, life's not perfect. Life's not fair. Get used to it. And so you're going to see the good, the bad, the ugly. And I think through that, that's just kind of good and bad. We saw the good times, the hard times, because there were struggles. I mean, good times and bad times, but we saw how they communicated, how we worked through it as a family. And of course, you didn't know it at the time, but looking back now, like those were some of the true building blocks that now probably I go back to and reference a lot when we're faced with our own challenges today and what that looks like and how do we get better generation after generation to build upon. Maybe we saw mistakes our parents made. Let's not try to repeat them this generation. And so I think we were lucky in that fact, and I'm really trying to instill those same philosophies in our children today by bringing them to work or showing them what we're doing and bringing them along in the business. So, but yes, I mean, I think it's definitely in our DNA, and it's exciting, And someone said today, like, your business has been so impacted right now, and you're so positive. I'm like, that's all I got, It's like luck comes to those who are prepared. I mean, either way, we'll figure it out,
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier the like the negotiations, like just the aha of going and ending up to buying Kaldi's. The question is, why coffee?
Yeah. So I think we kind of stumbled upon it. I won't say there was some big strategy to go and figure out how to own a coffee business one day. I mean, I think it was a little bit of a great timing. Kaldi started here in '94 when really Starbucks was just entering the market and people were just now kind of understanding like, oh, what is a cappuccino? What's a latte? And thanks to Starbucks, people learned really fast that, there's really good coffee out there. And so, the founders of Kaldi's had a great vision for where it was going. And when we met them we were looking at using Kaldi's for our establishment, we were like, wait a minute, like we could really grow and be part of the coffee business, because the cool thing about our business is, and what makes us, I think, so passionate about it is it goes beyond having great coffee. I mean, we love bringing people together and having great conversations around coffee, and I think our family's done that, and so probably that was there too. But it's also like it's such a global supply chain that we're working with. There's so many ways we can help positively impact the world and the people we're working with, and it has exposed us to so many bigger things I think we ever thought was possible. So it's so easy to get passionate once you truly understand how all of that works. And so part of, I think, doing that is having a special place like a retail store where you could actually create an experience. And that's really what Demund was. I mean, it's always special. I didn't make it special, but there was something about that place that was just special. And so, when we first mentioned that to the founders, they're like, what? We don't want to, we get approached all the time about someone buying this place. We're not selling it. And then fast forward, they came back and said, we think maybe your family's a little different. Let's talk, And so fast forward, and, we decided to get into the business together, and then over time we expanded Kaldi's and stuff, and then we still consider them the founders today and give them a ton of credit for putting coffee here in the first place. So
well, a few years ago, I took my team to the Kaldi's location right over here, and we did the cupping.
Yeah.
And your what do you call them, like experts, baristas?
Yeah, baristas.
I mean,
roasters.
These guys and gals just are insanely knowledgeable when it comes to coffee.
And they have a heck of a palate. So
yeah, it's like it all just tastes like coffee to me.
Right, exactly. It does. But it's like over time, someone's like sitting here like, oh, it tastes a little bit grassy, a little earthy, and people are like, what? But then, kind of like wine, over time, you kind of develop those skill sets. And now they've even created what they call a Q grader's license, which my brother was one of the first 100. He was one of just a few hundred people in the U.S. that had it. Now it's a little bit more common, but it's kind of like a wine sommelier. And basically you have to blind taste coffees from around the world and tell what country and what origin they're from.
Wow.
So it's an amazing, and he has that palate. I'm not, saying that I have that palate, but I do, love tasting coffee from different places. And people have just, when we first got into the business, they're like, oh, do you want a light roast or dark roast, right? Or medium roast. And now it's like, oh, can I get that Costa Rican coffee? Or, hey, I see you have that Rwandan coffee. And then they realize there's a seasonality to when we bring in coffee. And now, guests have gotten to the point they're so into it that they can even know sometimes when the seasons are, that we'll be rolling these coffees. Oh, I know you're going to get that Ethiopia coffee soon. It's my favorite. What day is it coming in? So I'm just amazed at the way our customer base has grown since when we got into it, fast forward to where we are now. But that's what makes it fun and exciting. It never gets old. So
one of the things that you just mentioned that I'm like super excited to ask you about, because I love travel, is this idea of where are you getting your coffees? How are you sourcing it? Talk us through where in the world the coffee business has taken you.
Yeah. Again, another awesome aspect of being in this industry is that it's so global. And, coffee is typically grown close to the equator. So, and some of the best coffees in the world are typically grown, obviously, in tropical climates and higher altitudes. And, but coffee really originated from, Ethiopia, we think, has some of the best coffees in the world, hence where the name Kaldi came from. It was an Ethiopian goat herder. And so some of my favorite coffees are from Africa. And, we do source a lot from Central and South America, but I had the opportunity, every year we call that the goat getter, hence our logo. They get a special award trip to go to Origin every year. And so this year we took 2 team members from Kaldi's to Rwanda. And it was a really special trip for me because not only did we get to visit coffee and tea farms in Rwanda, we wanted to go to a coffee growing region that also had great tea. But we also got to visit a couple of women's co-ops there. So they thought it was so cool to see this group of women coming from Kaldi's and showcasing like all of the hard work they put into some of these co-ops and farms and all the cool things they were doing. We just released the coffee from Rwanda last week. And but we also, as we want to make an impact, another part of our vision is to make an impact on education and wellness. And so there is a university in Rwanda where we were wanting to get more engaged with not only going there for coffee, but also seeing how we could maybe get involved with showcasing what we do in the U.S., with a coffee growing region. And so how could we help showcase how you can have a specialty coffee shop in Rwanda, which, by the way, they're starting to pop up in a lot of different places, which is amazing. And Rwanda still exports 98% of their coffee, which is really good. And so what if they kept some more of that and actually roasted it there locally and served it locally and creating more of an entrepreneurial model for specialty coffee? Because another big thing that's difficult in our industry right now, speaking of Origin, is the sustainability of coffee, because it's a commodity, and so we don't pay commodity prices, we pay differentials on top of that for quality coffee, which is extremely important because that's what's going to be sustainable for farmers to keep wanting to farm coffee. So if we're not paying them a certain wage for that, eventually they're going to say, well, I'm going to use my farmland for something different. So how can we be bigger and get more roasters across the country to be bigger supporters of making sure they can rely on us year in, year out for great coffee? And so, so it's pretty amazing when you get to see that on the ground. And so we do try to stay extremely active with what we call our relationship coffee growers and visit them frequently. So I'm not big on signing contracts because I'm like, they're good people. And, we want to work with good people at the end of the day. And as long as they can help protect us, if the prices skyrocket, commodity prices go up, and we're always going to be loyal to them too. And so it's been really cool to see how that's worked out. And then ultimately to see the impact after buying from a producer for over 10 years, what impact we can have on that community. And that's really important. And it's even more important, I think, for our guests here that drink our coffee every day can see. And it's something I'm very passionate about. So it goes beyond just having a great cup of coffee, that's for sure.
There's so many people involved in that
supply
process,
chain.
that supply chain. And the fact that by purchasing, a bag of coffee, you're helping, each person along that supply chain.
Along the way. And,
Yeah.
we always it's not funny, but I mean, coffee has to be one of the most labor-intensive beverages that there is out of anything. So if someone complains about paying $4 for a great cup of coffee, I'm like, hey, you want to go on an origin trip with me? Because I think once you go and truly experience how much hard work and effort goes in to picking every coffee cherry, to the processing, to the shipping, to getting it here, it's, you realize you're getting a pretty good deal on that cup of coffee. So yeah, I think we should be charging glasses of wine prices for coffee.
Definitely, there's this idea of the premium on value and sustainability. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what it's been like to develop those relationships across cultures, across kind of different ways of doing business with the countries of origin where you source from for roasting.
Yeah, I think like with any important business relationship, a huge part of that is trust. And so, it's really just taken time, I think, for us to follow through on our commitments year after year of saying, hey, we're going to buy this coffee. And I think we've always done it, and it's been so important that I don't want to say but sometimes I don't think we talk about it enough, and I think we have to get better at that. So recently we've been hosting every Friday, having these Zoom conference meetings with all of our team. When we roll out a coffee, we always celebrate it, of course, but we don't always get into sometimes the deep details of our relationships and what we call relationship coffees. And so, for example, kind of a cool St. Louis connection, there was a WashU graduate who just had this dream of one day owning his own coffee farm because he wanted to do business the right way and saw the need for going in and actually charging higher prices, but having quality to charge for, and sometimes these producers just haven't had the access to buying roasting equipment or, actually being able to taste their own coffee so they know year in, year out what has to be done to make improvements to those farms. And so he got a group together and really started gathering up more farmland in Nicaragua to make improvements to the farm, and we were one of his first customers. And so that started back in 2008. So fast forward to now, he's like, I had him on a call a couple of weeks ago, and actually every week he's coming on, and now we're doing these kind of cool collaborative Insta story segments, and he was just saying, I mean, if it weren't for Kaldi's, and it's him saying this, and that's what makes it so cool, it's like we wouldn't be here today. So the impact that you all have had from being so loyal and seeing all the great things, and all the support we're giving the schools and the hospital systems, that's amazing. And thanks to you all now, we're selling more coffee to different roasters across the country, but even take times like, what we're going through now with this pandemic, hopefully shorter term, he's like, you still follow through on your commitment, even though when we know your business is affected, and that's what's going to get us through this. You're feeding our producers here and our farmers, and so that's huge. And then he would take us to the farm, and he would show the team around, and it was so neat for, I think, that story coming from him to truly get on the ground and show our team the impact. I mean, unfortunately, we can't take all of our team members down there on a trip, although we do every year take a couple of them. It was just really neat having that. And then, we work closely with some of our importers as well. And so when we do decide to go on some of these trips, we say we really want to make a difference. And so we visit different ones. And then based on how the visits go, each year we work with a lot of the same ones, but then we'll add new ones to the mix and start new relationships and hopefully come back, build value for those coffees here, and get our guests excited about them so we can pay them more ultimately, and in return they can make improvements to their farm and have better coffee. Not to my knowledge yet has there been a cup of coffee that has scored what they kind of have in wine you see the scoring system, but 100-point coffee. And the saying goes, because the perfect cup still doesn't quite exist, because the search is on still to get that perfect cup of coffee. So no one's going to get that 100 quite yet. So maybe one day, but yeah. But that's really, I think, that's what keeps us going every day. I mean, it's just, it's so easy to get passionate about when you see ultimately the impact we have. And to me, it even goes beyond coffee, because now we're looking at ways we can impact education in Africa and other places. And I mean, I can go on and on about how excited I am about that. So yes.
Well, you talk so effortlessly about how impact and how you do business and why you do business is so intertwined with the way you do business. Talk to us about how you got to that point. Was it always there from the beginning? Like you talked about the values that your parents instilled, but how did you really bake in impact into the core operation of how you run things?
I think I've always been passionate, and I don't know if you can teach passion to people, and I think passionate people act. I think you can inspire people for sure, but it takes that passion really to ignite that. And so I think it's been coffee for me, but now I'm getting into the tea business. And I think that's just as exciting, because there's tons of opportunity and things to learn. And I also think it's just this level of curiosity, right? That if you're curious about things, you're going to learn more and dig more and figure out ways to make things better. So for me, it's like always trying to recreate things in terms of keeping it interesting. And there's really just never a dull moment because you can keep recreating things and staying positive. And that's just the mindset I try to keep.
Excellent.
And with that, I think it's time for the lightning round.
Okay.
Yeah? Are you ready? Are you ready?
Three quick questions in.
All right, I'm just going to pick one.
Finally.
Randomly.
Oh, no.
What would you do if you were not afraid?
Ooh. What would I do if I'm not afraid? Sometimes I think I'm just like, I wish I could be more spontaneous, like, I'm just not going to go into the office today and I'm going to go teach myself something new and do something different. And I think I need to do that more because I ask myself this question, like, if you're laying on your deathbed, what's something you're going to regret in your life? So sometimes I think I get so excited about what we're doing at work that sometimes I'm like, I need to see my friends more and I need to make sure I'm doing some of those things. And I don't know if it's fear or what that is, but I just think I need to get out of that routine sometimes and just be more spontaneous.
So mixing things up a little bit. So this question is personal. What makes you feel loved?
Do you know about the 5 love languages?
Yes.
Okay. I'm words of affirmation. So like my husband and I had to figure that out because he's like always trying to do these acts of service. I'm like, honey, I don't want you to vacuum anymore. Just tell me you love me, And so I think there's so much truth to those, and I think it makes a big difference. But I think words of affirmation, that's kind of my love language. So.
And this is a great follow-up. How do you show love to others?
Ooh. I'm a hugger. I just love people. So if you told me I had to work from home for the rest of my life, I'd probably just, want to go die in the corner. I love being around people, and I just truly have an interest in people. Like, that's what inspires me and keeps me going every day. So I'm a hugger, I'm a lover. I say it, so I mean it.
So I think this might be the last one. What is a defining moment in your life, and how did it impact you?
I think recently I gave at my alma mater at Mizzou, I gave the commencement address in December. And it was kind of cool because I actually spent a lot of time reflecting before the speech. I put a lot of time into it because I wanted it to be meaningful. And I kind of gave like just my background and what I've learned and where I am now and what maybe I wish I would have known then that I know now. And it was kind of defining for me to think, is this where I thought I'd be? And, I think in many ways it is, and I'm so proud, but I feel like it's not over, right? Yeah. There's still so much I want to do. So it made me kind of reflect a little bit more probably and think differently to define my life where it is today.
Awesome.
Wow. This has been, we could have gone on another 26 minutes,
I can
right?
talk forever. So
this has been great.
Fun. It's been so fun. And thank you so much for having me. So.
Tricia, how can people get in touch with you, with Kaldi's, all the digital wwws,
they can
tags,
find us on
handles?
Instagram. So Kaldi's_coffee. We're doing a lot of cool things on that right now. Track me down at the Roaster here in St. Louis. I'm usually hanging out there at one of our retail stores every day. But yeah, just get in touch with us. I'm somewhere to be found. So always drinking coffee, and I'd love to meet new people. So I'd like to meet any of you and just talk coffee or something else. Where we're going to be in 10 years from now, I don't know. So.
Well, Tricia, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to Innovation City. If you like this episode, you can find more episodes at innovationcity.co or anywhere where you watch or listen to podcasts. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll see you next week.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye. So all your fears, all your doubts, this is where they die.